So when I'm training, I have a number of different like techniques or approaches that I will use, and I'll change it up from time to time just to make sure that it always feels fresh for me. What I see a lot of times in the gym is that people go in and they're in there all the time, so you can't fault their effort because they're obviously moving and working all the time. But the problem is they're doing the same things all the time. Like the routine just never really changes, right? Okay, so if you're in that boat, I'm going to be talking to you today. Now, first, let me introduce myself. I am Mark Johnson, the founder of BouncePad, bringing you ideas for a fit and flourishing future. I'm also the youngest son of Bill Johnson. Now, I want you to leave comments because I enjoy reading your feedback. And yeah, you don't have to agree. But even if you disagree, tell me what you think. I might learn something, and I'm going to try to make sure that you learn something today with this message. So, again, you might be in that class of people. There's a certain like type of person that I see at the gym, and this is quite common. They are there several days a week, maybe even every day. Okay, and so the effort and the intent cannot be faulted. This is the person who's on top of things. They're doing the right thing. Okay, but what we're talking about is uh, maybe doing the right thing in a repetitive way so that it starts to get kind of old and boring, and you start to, it can be demotivating after a while because there's just not enough variation in the routine. Okay, and so what I want to do is just share with you some things that I do personally to jazz up my routines and make sure that they never get too boring, too stale. So when I'm training, I have a number of different like techniques or approaches that I will use, and I'll change it up from time to time just to make sure that it always feels fresh for me. Okay. So these ideas that I'm sharing with you today, this is not something that I just read somewhere online and I'm just, regurgitating it like this. No, these are things that I actually do. So all I'm talking to you today about are things that I actually do. Okay. And this is just, maybe if it can help you, give you some ideas for things that you can try and apply in your workout or in your training to make it more interesting. If I can do that, then I have reached my goal for today. Okay. So I'm not going to get too technical, just going to tell you things that I do. Now, with that said, I do weight training. So if you don't do weight training, some of this may, you may feel as though it doesn't really apply to you, but just stick around and listen because you may still pick up something. Like there may be some tidbits somewhere in here that help you out regardless. But if you do weight training, I think you're going to find this interesting and beneficial. Now, you might also know some of this. And if you do know some of this, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. Question then just becomes, as I often ask you, are you actually applying what you know? Okay, if you already know something but you never apply it, then maybe it's about time for you to actually apply it and then see if it works for you. Okay, that's the whole point of application, to see if what you know works for you. So if you know what I'm talking about already, next question is, are you doing it? All right. Now let's jump in. One of the things that I do when I'm weight training is I'll do, and this is frequently, I'll do supersets. So a superset is basically two consecutive exercises that I'll do. Okay. And the exercises typically will target different muscle groups. So the first exercise, let's just say, I'm just throwing something out there. Let's say the first one is a lat pull down. So I'm primarily targeting my back. So I'll do some reps of that. And then I'll follow that up with some biceps curls. Okay. So basically what you're doing is one exercise is targeting the back. The next exercise is targeting the biceps. But the key is that between those exercises, there's no rest period. So with a superset, what I'm doing is I'm doing the lat pull downs, however many reps, let's just throw out a number, 10 reps, do 10 reps. And then without resting, I pick up some dumbbells or something, or maybe a barbell or whatever. And then I immediately start repping out on biceps curls. And it may be, 10 reps or 12 reps of that, whatever it is. However many reps you choose to do, that's up to you. We don't need to like get down in those weeds, but that's one thing that you can do. Now, one of the benefits of, or actually there are two main benefits of doing supersets. The first one is it tends to add a lot of intensity to your workout because you're doing essentially two consecutive exercises with no rest period in between. Okay, so that's adding a lot of intensity. Okay, the second thing is it allows you to how do we say, hasten or speed up your workout. So you can get a lot more exercises into a shorter workout time than you would otherwise. Because again, you're doing two exercises back to back, little rest in between. And so that really speeds up the pace of your workout. But like I said, this is going to add a lot of intensity. So be prepared, to get a little bit, you're gonna get tired. If you're doing supersets, it will definitely fatigue you more quickly than if you aren't doing supersets. Now, a related idea, something else that I do is, I do compound sets. Compound sets are fundamentally, it's the same concept as a superset. The only difference is with a compound set, I'm targeting the same muscle groups. So I'm doing two exercises back to back with no rest in between, targeting the same muscle group. Okay. So for example, I might do let's just say I'm targeting arms. I might do one, excuse me, one set of biceps curls. Okay. Again, no break, no rest period. And then I immediately transition into some triceps push downs or something like that. Okay. So you're working the arms, you're hitting the biceps first, then you hit the triceps immediately after. No rest in between, okay? But it's basically, if you consider just the arms, one muscle group, you're just working on one muscle group instead of like you do with a superset where you're working on two different muscle groups. So this again, because you're doing two different exercises with no rest period in between, you can speed up your workout and it's going to create a lot more intensity, okay? So be ready for that intensity, okay? Now, let's move on. I do a lot of other things, okay? One of the things that you can do if your workout is repetitive, and especially if you find that it's getting a bit too easy, one of the simplest things that you can do without actually changing the exercises you're doing is slow down the reps, right? Slow down the reps. So this just relates to something called time under tension. Most of you already know what that is. But basically, time under tension means the amount of time that your muscle is contracting and therefore under tension, basically. That's all it is. So increasing the time under tension, again, take a simple example. If I'm doing a biceps curl, let's say my normal pace would be something like this, okay? That's a fast biceps curl, in my opinion. If I wanted to increase the time under tension, what I would do, I would slow down. I would go more like this, right? Now, what is this going to do? You would be amazed if you have not done this before. You would be amazed at how much more difficult the lift becomes when you slow down. Believe me, if you're doing any kind of an exercise that has become a bit too easy to do because, maybe the muscle memory kicks in and also you just have a lot of experience doing it and it's just not much of a challenge anymore. Slow it down. Slow it down a lot. Increase the time under tension. And I guarantee you will start to feel that exercise working again. Okay? This is one of the problems with body weight exercises. A lot of times, especially like if you're like me, I'm not particularly heavy. So for me, body weight exercises they don't give me enough of a stimulus. unless I slow the reps down. If I slow the reps down, that's one of the ways that I can make a body weight exercise challenging for me. Otherwise, I have to add on extra weight somehow. Maybe if I'm doing dips, I'll put on a dip belt to add extra weight. That's typically what I do. But let's just, for argument's sake, say that I don't have a dip belt today and I want to do dips. One of the ways that I can make those dips challenging with simply my body weight is to slow the reps down drastically. Maybe taking 4 or 5 seconds, between 4 and 6 seconds per rep. Okay. And then that's going to make that dip. Every dip is going to feel much more challenging. So go ahead and give that a try as well. This is something else that you can do to jazz up your workout. It doesn't require you to actually do different exercises than you're already doing, but it will increase the challenge and it'll definitely focus your mind more. Okay. Now, let's move on. Another thing that you can do is you can do how do we say the the umbrella term would be like straight sets, but what I would do is something called GVT, which is German volume training, which is a type of training that incorporates straight sets. So straight sets are basically just when you do a certain number of sets at a certain load or amount of weight, okay? And every set is basically the same number of reps, same load. And you just do it over and over and over. Now, in this case, I think what you want to focus on here is making sure that the the amount of weight that you're handling it can't be too low. It can't be too easy. Okay. So you've got to be, you know, 60% of your one rep max or more. Something like that. It's got to be like moderate to heavyweight. So something that's at least moderately challenging because you don't just want to be doing a gazillion reps with really, really light weight and not really accomplish anything. If the weight is not heavy enough, then you can do a million reps and eventually you will fatigue yourself, but you're not actually going to be like building muscle or getting stronger. You won't accomplish either one of those with really light weight because the weight is just not challenging enough, right? And the very, if you can do like, for argument's sake, if you can do like 60 or 70 reps of an exercise without any rest, I mean, just 60, 70 reps consecutively, what that should tell you is that it's not heavy enough, okay? It's just not heavy enough. You might be fatigued. You might really be fatigued at the end of those 70 reps. But the fact that you could get out 70 reps consecutively is an indication that you actually need to increase the weight somehow. Either increase the weight, or if you can't do that, like I said, slow it down so you increase time under tension. Okay. Now, with that said, if you're going to do straight sets, then what you want to do, maybe you can do the German volume training, like I mentioned before. This is very simply 10 sets of 10 reps at usually a moderate weight, okay? Because by the time you get to that like 6th or 7th set, you will definitely start feeling tired, okay? So by the time you're in like that 8th or 9th set, you might not actually be able to complete 10 reps, and that's fine, okay? The idea is, getting a lot of volume and eventually getting to the point where those later sets become very, very difficult for you. Okay, and then that's where you're going to get some stimulation on that muscle that's really going to cause it to perhaps grow, maybe help you get a little stronger. But it's really more for muscle growth more so than just for absolute strength, because for building strength, you really need heavy weight. And if you're dealing with really heavy weight, it's going to be hard to get 10 sets of 10 reps in the first place. So really what you're talking about here is a type of workout with GVT where you can build, the size of your muscles, hypertrophy, they say, right? So this is something that I do from time to time. And again, it's just a way that I jazz up my workouts. What's something else that I do? One of the other things that I like to do every once in a while, this is one I do less often, but once or twice a month, I'll do this. again, this is a great intensity building technique, okay? And it's a drop set, okay? So a drop set is basically when you pick one exercise, okay? You're going to do one type of lift, but you're going to do it at a bunch of different weights. So the weight will start off high, and then I'll just progressively, or I should say regressively, drop the weight down between, each set. So the idea here is that basically you start off at a heavy weight, and then you start repping, and then you go until you can't do any more reps at that weight. Then you lower the weight, and then you keep repping. There's no break in between. You start off at this weight, you rep out until you can't do any more. You lower the weight, you start repping again, and you rep out until you can't do any more. And then you lower the weight again, and then you keep repping again, and so on and so forth. Now, how many times you lower the weight is up to you. But the idea is simply that you're starting off high, and then you're moving lower and lower and lower. The reason that you have to do it this way, of course, is because, you're starting off at that heavy weight. And so you're just going to run out of steam at that really heavy weight. And then every time you drop the weight, eventually you're just going to run out of steam if you keep repping at that weight. So you're going to have to keep dropping it in order to keep repping with no breaks in between. Okay. So again, this is going to build like massive intensity in your workout if it's not something that you're already doing. So give that a try as well. Okay. Now, the last thing, now I rarely do this, but I have tried it, and it is something that you can try. Something called a cluster set. A cluster set is basically when let's just say I'm doing a bench press. Okay. What I'll do is I'll start repping. Okay. And let's just say let's say that the set, I'm supposed to do 12 reps total for the set. So I'll start repping. Maybe I'll do like 4 reps. Okay. On that 4th rep, I'll take a short pause for like 10 seconds. So I have like 10 seconds of just a little bit of recovery time, and then I start repping again. Okay, maybe another 4 reps, and then take another pause for maybe 5 or 10 seconds, right? Just a little bit of recovery, and then I start repping again, right? So that's what you call a cluster set. A cluster set, what it does is it allows you to maintain more power than you normally would. Okay, so strength and power are not exactly the same thing. So strength is just how strong you are, literally. Power is your ability to generate strength quickly, to move weight quickly and forcefully. That's what power is. So if you're performing a set and you don't take any rest between reps, what happens is gradually your power decreases, right? So you're not going to have the same amount of power, the ability to get that weight up quickly that on the 10th rep that you had on the first rep, right? A cluster set mitigates that to a certain degree because you're taking these short breaks of like 10 to 15 seconds every 3 or 4 reps. Okay. So periodically during the set, you're going to be able to regenerate, some of that initial, power that you had. So this is another technique. Again, not something I do all the time, but I have tried it. It is interesting. So give it a try. Okay. So I think I've mentioned to you so far, cluster. I just talked about cluster. We just talked about drop sets. I talked to you first about supersets and compound sets, I believe. And then I talked to you about time under tension, which is basically the idea of slowing down your reps. And I also mentioned straight sets, specifically German volume training. Now, you may notice my voice is not great today because I do have a slight cold. So I'm going to have to put on a mask when I go into the gym today because I don't want to be spreading this to other people. But it's just slight, very, very slight in my throat. That's it. So I know I don't sound great, but thanks for bearing with me. Just wanted to share with you some of the things that you can do to keep your training interesting, to keep yourself motivated, to keep yourself looking forward to going to that next workout, okay? Because I know, how easy it is for people. I see it all the time. People fall into routines at the gym, and they're doing the same thing every day, the same way, and so they never actually grow. So, excuse me, I want you to remember that in order for you to grow, you've got to be challenging yourself. And in order to challenge yourself, you have to change it up. You have to add some variation to your routine. It can't just be the same over and over and over all the time, every time. Okay. So with that said, gonna leave you with that. I want you to try some of these things out if you're not doing them. And like I said, leave comments. Let me know if they work for you. So take this with you. Talk to you next time.